Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live, and there's also a coffee, Patreon, crypto and thanks button in the info box below the video. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel. So please share the show on Facebook and X. Now we are joined by Neil and a whole bunch of people in Discord, so welcome one and all.
This is sad. Why am I the only one here? Let's go,
morning,
people.
Everyone. Good morning.
Hey,
I keep
Nathan.
telling you, there's no obligation
Neil?
for anybody to be here, Neil. And if I happen to not have a massive amount of support on my G Plus panel, there's a whole bunch of people in Discord. Say hello from Discord, so everybody knows you're real.
Good morning.
There you go.
Good morning once again.
Good morning.
I understand there's people in Discord, but the G Plus panel is the G Plus panel. I'm talking specifically to them. Now, if I can manage to get here, going in and out of the car, getting orders, delivering orders, stopping at lights, and still be involved in the show, so can others.
There's no obligation for anybody. Any single viable hypothesis from any of the fields of astronomy, cosmology, or astrophysics?
I would ask Adam, but he's not here.
No, he's not. He's got a life and a career. What do you want? There's no obligation for anybody. Third time's a charm.
No scientific
Chocolate,
evidence.
any evidence?
No, you rumpus Duncan telling us that. What about any evidence that there's a self-perpetuating molten iron core at the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth?
Just illustrations and pictures. That's it.
Julio. Okay, we're going to get straight into it today, right? So we've got a video by somebody we have actually covered in the past, and it's a shorts video, but it is so information dense that it's worth us covering. So I've already put him in the title. I don't know if I've spelled his name right. I'll check that after the fact. But this is AstroKobi, right? And he's done a, as I say, shorts video. So please let him know. If you've only just got here from the live stream chat, it's not normally this early in the show that we're doing calls to action, but I'm hoping we can cover all of this in one sitting. Now, you might think, well, it's a shorts video. Surely you can cover that pretty quickly. Well, no. It's very, very information-rich in terms of the presuppositional... it's less than 45 seconds in terms of how much there is to cover. Now, we might rattle our way through it in less than 5 minutes. We will see how we get on. I would expect us to be able to pick apart a lot of different aspects of this and comment on them to a massive extent. We'll see how we get on with just the Discord server and Neil here. But I'm pretty confident that you'll enjoy this in terms of a good summary to what Flat Earth is to date and what represents the arguments and how people perceive this argument to take place based on anti-Flat Earth or generally mainstream globe-believing opponents. So his link's going by in the live stream chat right now. Please let him know at Nathan Oakley 1980 sent me. The idea being that were AstroKobi to respond to our critique of his claims about what Flat Earth is or isn't, he would leave a video link to our video and help us in the algorithmic love where we receive none. This guy's going to get all of the searches directed towards him. I found it by doing a Flat Earth search, similar to what I was doing when I was a newbie to this subject. So what I've been doing recently is typing in those similar searches that I don't do. Now, the downside to this is I do it on my main account, so it means I'm now going to get all sorts of videos offered to me like I'm a fresh newbie into this subject and I need a load of anti-Flat Earth propaganda presented to me. But there we go. That's what we're covering, so that might be useful. We'll see. So without further ado, this is AstroKobi. Hopefully that's given enough time for people to go and actually leave a comment on this shorts video that says at Nathan Oakley 1980 sent me. And as I say, hopefully he'll leave a link to our video where he to respond.
Debunking flat Earth in 60 seconds or less. We first proved the Earth was a sphere using a literal stick in the ground.
Really? What, like a stick with a shadow with respect to a flat surface? So automatically your first claim that you've got a proof that this is a spherical Earth measurement relies fundamentally on Earth being flat in order to measure this as an angle. It's an angle measurement, 2 straight lines. So for this line to be a straight line, Earth has to be measured flat. You're going to rumpus every single end to every single point, Neil. Just wait till I finish my sentence before you open your mic. Go ahead, Neil.
Go ahead, Nathan. Go ahead.
You opened your mic and rumpused the end of the conclusion, and now you're telling me to go ahead, like I need telling to go ahead when you've interrupted and then left dead air after interrupting with a great loud noise as you open your mic. Oh, just go ahead with what you wanted to obviously interrupt the end of that conclusion with by opening your mic. I don't need to be told to go ahead. I'm running the show. Welcome to Flat Earth Debate.
Obviously. Have a little freaking patience. I'm doing things as well. So when I'm driving and hitting it off mute, just freaking relax.
I don't need a commentary about your situation, Neil. You've interrupted, presumably because you've got a point you want to make. It's now been 45 seconds of this. Do you want to just make the point that you interrupted me for? Or should we drag this out for another 5 straight minutes?
All I wanted to say is he's proven a flat Earth right from Jump Street. Go ahead.
Oh, thanks. That's kind of what I was saying when you interrupted. Yeah, he's measuring an angle that requires Earth to be flat to expand on Neil's interruption that was being quite admirably qualified as he interrupted. It needs a flat Earth. It's a straight line. To get an angle, this can only work on a flat Earth. Now, given that I've explained how straight lines work to qualify how this measurement is being done with respect to a horizontal plane to call it an angle in the first place. Let's see how he gets on with a qualification. Now, this obviously proves that we're measuring a sphere with 2 straight lines.
So it's not hard to understand. Space looks different.
Oh, sorry. 2 straight lines prove sphere, not hard to understand. Is that it? Because as far as I'm concerned, you've just proved you measured the flat Earth, my friend. And I did qualify it, rather than just saying it's not difficult to understand. Is that sort of a bit of a nod to your opponent or a nod to your audience member? You don't need to know this. It's just obvious. What, that 2 straight lines forming an angle would need a flat Earth to measure? Yeah, it's obvious to me, but it might not be obvious to my audience, so I'm going to explain how that angle measurement proved Earth was flat. Anybody else out there hearing that? Yeah? This is your claim to be it's the sphere Earth surface that's being measured with this angle, and me saying, so it's good enough to prove a curved surface according to you. Oh yeah, definitely. It's on this shorts video from AstroKobi. Right, so when I point out that an angle's a flat, straight line, and that's, according to you, good enough for the surface measurement, you'll accept that that's the surface measurement. That's a measurement of the surface, formally claimed to prove it was curving, but fundamentally can only be flat. What's that? Nathan doesn't actually offer up any measurements. Yeah, do. They're all flat. Earth's measured flat. Even in your own little globe examples, Earth's measured flat.
To people in the southern and northern hemispheres.
Sorry, hemispheres? When you say northern and southern hemispheres, would you be referring to a begging the question sphere Earth beneath your feet, or the celestial spheres described above flat plains when you describe them as north and south hemispheres? Because if you are describing how the stars have been mapped and charted and used to give us flat maps and flat grids, then they're angle measurements off a flat plane that describe those star movements. And those star movements, when you talk about north and south hemisphere, are with respect to a flat plane. It's called the celestial sphere. But that has no relation to the ground you're on, unless you beg the question. Which you definitely do. I've already watched this video.
Compare the moons. This only makes sense if people in Australia are upside down.
Or if you just walked past it with it above you. I mean, it's not the only way it would be explained. It's how you very specifically beg the question that you're antipodal in your positioning when you take and affirm in the consequent formal logical fallacy to the point where your conclusion proves your original assertion. If Earth's a sphere, then we will have a difference in the observation of the moon when travelling between North and South Hemisphere. We do travel between North and South Hemisphere, therefore we do observe this difference in the moon. Okay. Yeah, that's an affirming the consequent formal logical fallacy that begs the question of antipodal positioning. Meanwhile, you can easily demonstrate how the moon would do that off a flat plane by sticking a plate on your ceiling, drawing a smiling face on it, and then walking past it, and seeing that it goes the other way when you walk past it. Doesn't prove anything. But the actual useful practical application of the luminaries are with relation to a celestial sphere over a flat plane. That's how they're practically used.
Relative to the northern hemisphere. And what about lunar eclipses?
Lunar eclipses? What, like that thing where the moon goes red?
The Earth's shadow is cast.
Shadow? I mean, I'm not exactly a shadow expert or anything, but when was the last time you saw a shadow that went red? Anybody? I hope that's not rhetorical. Anybody seen shadows that go bright red? Because that's what the moon did when I watched this. It went bright red.
I've seen Selenians.
Selenians.
And yeah, and that proves there's not a shadow.
Yeah, Selenian eclipse would be where you've got both sun and moon above the horizon at the same time. Known in the heliocentric bullshit world of a globe Earth in a vacuum as an impossible eclipse. Impossible because it doesn't work with the heliocentric model, because Earth would have to be precluding the light from the moon, or to the moon, whichever way you want to look at it. As opposed to going red. So this is nonsense.
Onto the moon as a perfect circle. And what about our literal photo?
A perfect circle of the moon shadow when begging the question of a sphere Earth in an orbital motion. The orbital motion was taken from flat Earth plane measurements to give you the angular relationships with respect to the celestial sphere over a plane. That's what you derive to give you orbital motions. The church did it initially. They were the ones who took this idea with the measurements of the stars off a flat plane and took them into a world that better explained epicycles at the time, now known as retrograde motion. But it was a better way of explaining it, to conceptualize this sphere Earth motion called orbits. That's a reification fallacy, though, because the measurements itself took place on a flat plane to give you those derivations that now lead you to believe that you stood on a sphere. Nah, it's just the church using those flat Earth measurements of the stars to better explain how they can have epicycles.
Of Earth. Do flat earthers use GPS?
What, that system that's using a flat grid? Covered this in the pre-show, coincidentally. So the Mercator projection with a longitude and latitude grid that's square plotted onto it. Okay, that grid, admittedly, you could argue, has come from a sphere-Earth projection, but the sphere-Earth projection came from a measurement of the stars with respect to a flat plane. So doing the little do-si-do by taking measurements off a flat plane, giving yourself a circular grid system, moving out from Polaris, and then wrapping that spherical system? No, it's flat. But if you wrap it on a sphere and then project it onto a cylinder and then roll it back out flat, that's the Mercator projection. Suddenly it means it's a sphere. No, it has to be flat. That's why the Mercator projection's a flat map. I mean, it alters, fundamentally, how that grid that's originally measured Polaris-centric off a flat plane would operate, but all of the distortions are understood. When you're travelling in a straight line on that map, you're actually curving, according to the assertions. But it's an inaccuracy that navigators would have to cope with. They understand it. Now, they also explain those inaccuracies down to the fact that it's a spherical projection on a flat map, even though that spherical projection and all the distortions that come along with it was originally made by measuring the stars off a flat plane. So no, GPS is a flat Earth proof. Doesn't use global systems for anything. The map is the Mercator projection. That is a flat map. Distorted massively from a sphere, from a measurement of a flat Earth, Polaris-centric in nature, for latitude.
Because GPS only works because of the satellites orbiting our very spherical Earth. And
orbiting is a concept that's come from the church. Nothing's orbiting anything in a sky vacuum. The ideas and notions described mathematically to give you better predictions of epicycles isn't reifiable into you actually standing on a sphere Earth surface in a sky vacuum with items falling around them. Even the notion of your items falling around them in an orbital motion defies the second law of thermodynamics in terms of the reification being in a sky vacuum. Gas that we breathe is at high pressure, and it's claimed that we have a low pressure system in a vast volume above our head. No, we'd all be dead. The gas we breathe would fill the space. There's no such thing as orbits. It's merely a conception to better describe motions that have been measured off a flat plane.
And we can see other planets using
Go ahead.
I just want to point out that GPS uses cell towers on the ground.
Yeah, but even if it did or didn't use balloons that you called satellites, I wouldn't care, because the system itself is using a flat plane grid. That's how it works.
telescopes.
On this, I have
Go ahead.
on this, I have a point that I was thinking about yesterday, and that is, when have we ever seen stars move around the sun? I think Brian mentioned it last night on QE Live. We've never seen that, right? We only see the sun traverse the sky during the day, and then the assumptions are made during the night of what it does during the day. Correct?
Correct.
Are they spherical, but Earth isn't? Debunking flat Earth in 60 seconds or less.
We'll just cover the last point. So he says that the lights in the sky are spherical. No, you've only got a two-dimensional view of them. Monocular vision through a telescope isn't three-dimensional. The view of the sky is not binocular. You don't have any sphericity to assert for any of the points of the light in sky, regardless of what you might infer when you get a close-up look at them through a telescope. It is not three-dimensional. That is fundamentally incorrect. Just demonstrates your ignorance. And to use it as for false comparison, so the lights in the sky, even if they were provable as spherical, which they are not, as you have just claimed incorrectly, what would that prove? So what, if I describe the acoustic treatment on my ceiling, it's going to describe what I am? No. Right, we covered that in 20 minutes. I thought it would be the whole show. Not bad. Not bad. AstroKobi. That's what you find if you search flat Earth or flat Earth debate. That's the kind of stuff that actually gets offered up to you. Garbage.
No, what do you expect? That's all that's been put out. It's been garbage, and that's what they latched onto. Thank all you flat earthers for that.
We all latched onto it too. I got it right in the neck yesterday from Brian. He's like, why are you defending people like Jaren? I'm like, because I've got empathy and I can easily see myself in the same boat. And I would hope for sympathy when I was in that boat if I'd made cock-ups or balls up or put flat earth at a bad light or regurgitated feast of nonsense or one of the many things that I could easily have done if I hadn't had better tutelage.
Yeah, but Brian's talking more now, like after everything, you're still defending these clowns. Time to stop.
Oh, maybe I'm a bit more of a people person than Brian. What can I say?
You know exactly what he's talking about.
Yeah, I heard him. He's saying, how many times are they going to stab you in the back and basically be detrimental to your progress in this subject matter? It's like, pff, okay. I mean, I'm going to accept all of those things if we are going to discuss them, but it's not exactly live show material, is it? And Brian's claim at the time was that Jaren wasn't trying to prove Earth was flat when that's precisely what he's claiming to be doing. And as I said to him at the time, I can only take people at their face value in terms of the words they actually use. I can't just assume that he's shilling for the opposition by doing a terrible job because he's capable of better, which is what Brian's argument was. Further to that, he's saying, why would you even defend them? It's like, well, based on reason. Based on what they've said. As opposed to what you're claiming. What's wrong with that? What's wrong with any of that? Doesn't matter if it's my worst enemy. If they're being misrepresented or if somebody's claiming that they're not doing something they're very specifically saying they are, then I'm going to take umbrage. Even if it's my worst enemy, who cares?
Yeah, but look at now. Even now, what's that? That video we went over, how he said, "Oh, you're going to need a flat Earth for that," sarcastically, but never expanded on the fact of what he said. He throws these little digs, Nathan, and I agree with Brian.
Fair enough. All right, going to say hello to a few people in chat. Shout out to David Reed and Oxbow Spirit, Divergent Droid in there, as always, doing a great job. Nice to have you all. Edda Bear, nice to see you. Return of the Mac. Obviously spherical. Is it? Show me how obviously spherical it is and I'll pay attention. Feel free to join the show. Doors are open. What else we got in there? Caprica Soul. Nice to see you, my friend. Good to see you all chatting reasonably friendly in the chat today. DJD637. Saying hello to the mod team. Good to have you all. Billy Philly 22. Woohoo, nice to see you. I was on pause. Alright, he's talking about the show and how it's running. Lots of good mornings and hellos to everybody. Unindoctrinated, or however you say your name, good to have you. Nice to see you all. Please share the show. Delwas Watson, one of my supporters. Thank you very much for being here. Roger, nice to see you. Good. We have actually got other things to cover today. So, about, I don't know, a week ago, somebody presented a Planet Peterson video. And I said, look, it's really long. Have you got any timestamps? Well, true to form, Mighty Mush has actually trimmed out various different sections of this video so that we can respond to them in a nice, orderly manner. So we have done a few of these already in the pre-show, but we'll just continue now. Why not?
Look up horizon. If the Earth were flat, this is not what you would see.
It's precisely what you see. It's a horizon. It could only be flat to form a horizon.
You would see is instead that would just fade away into obscurity.
That's what it is doing. It's an optical point of dissolution. It's the vanishing point. It would just fade away. Well, like vanish. Precisely like it is.
He contradicted
I'm glad we
himself.
got back into this now we're in the live show. This was such a riot in the pre-show. It was a laugh, wasn't it?
He contradicted himself twice in like 10 seconds.
Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant.
Instead, what you're seeing is the top of the curve. Like if you're standing at the front or whatever, the end of a bridge that has a hump, you can't see the other side. You can, because it's covered up by the hump on the bridge.
Yeah, we know the basic globe Earth claim. Yeah, the basic globe claim is that there's a physical geometric limitation to your view at 1.2 times the square root of the observer's height in feet. We get that. That's your claim that you need to now back and show. Oh, what's that? It's already been demonstrably undone by the Black Swan 4 years ago. Yeah, it has. If the Earth was a sphere, as asserted in this claim, with a edge of a bridge getting in your way of things in the distance, then there would be no day ever that a car parked beyond the edge of the bridge could be seen. That is to say, you come to the edge of the bridge and you can't see that there's a hill just past the crest. You can't see it. Why? Well, because you're lower than it and the hill gets in the way. The hill that is the bridge gets in the way as you're looking to walk over the bridge. It humps up and that hump blocks a car. Now, there is no circumstances ever that you will come to that same point where it isn't possible to see a car because there's a hump of a hill, aka bridge, in the way, that the car has the bridge behind the car. Let's make it something a bit more fixed. Let's say it's a fire hydrant, so there's no ambiguity about the car moving. It's in a fixed location, and as you approach the bridge, you cannot see the fire hydrant because of the hump of the bridge. You won't come back the next day and reach the same point where it cannot be seen and find that the frickin' bridge is behind the fire hydrant. Whereas that is precisely what we show in the Black Swan if you work on the assumption that the horizon is the edge of a hill blocking your view of things in the distance. Physical in nature. That's precisely what the Earth curve maths claims. 1.2 times the square root of the observer's height in feet, there'll be a obstruction to your view blocking boats and buildings when you give a feet and inches value only that doesn't change with distance, aka perspective. That's why we call it the begging the question. That's because it assumes proof of nothing, because it's not proving anything when you're begging the question. Perspective hijacking, that is to say it takes the perspective effects of things disappearing into the distance because they reduce in size and calls it Earth curve. Now in the Black Swan image you can show how where a 1.2 times the square root of the observer's height in feet, observer height 1 foot, 1.2 mile hill, bridge, getting in the way, isn't. The oil rigs are vastly beyond that which should be obscuring them. That is to say, in comparison, the hill is vastly beyond the fire hydrant that it was formerly blocking the previous day. Now, bridges don't do that. You're never going to get to a circumstance where the bridge is behind the fire hydrant on the other side of the bridge. But with Earth curve, claimed to be a physical obstruction by this numpty, we can demonstrably show that it is not physical, not blocking things. Beyond 10 miles, marked by the 2 oil rigs at those 6 and 9 point whatever it is mile distances, and the horizon's beyond them. So it isn't a equivalent to a bridge getting in the way. We've debunked it.
The hump of the Earth, that's kind of a weird thing to say, is what the horizon is.
No, it isn't. It's an optical dissolution point. It's the point where the angular resolution versus the deck reaches its limit. It's described by the Rayleigh criterion.
Look up horizon.
Go ahead, John.
Well, in Earth curve mathematics, surface level is a horizontal plane. So to even assert it's a hump, you have to assume that the surface is a horizontal plane.
Yes, the differential between eye level and surface level gives you a geometric inference of a point below surface level that blocks your view, when in reality all the calculation is the optical dissolution point boiled down in orthographic view, calculable as the difference between surface level, that's a flat Earth, surface level, and eye level, a level parallel with surface level, that's the ground, that's the flat Earth that is needed to be measured to make this inference that there's a below surface level point that is a hill. No, it isn't. It's been unequivocally debunked by us 4 years ago, and needs a flat Earth to assert the hill getting in the way.
Well, what it basically boils down to is the optical plane, which we create with our eye, and that's what we see, versus the actual plane, and they get lost somewhere in the middle and think that the Earth's curving because of all these planes of reference. It's sad, really.
Can somebody check, because I haven't, if this videographer who is responding to us, if he actually put a link to our video, as specifically requested multiple times when we sent people to his video to bolster him in the algorithm and offer him views and likes and comments. Did he put a link to our video? Can someone just check that for me? Have we already gone through this in full now? Is it on to the next clip? I think we have.
A lot of the stuff that they're pretending to know something about, I don't really know the specifics. If you know a lot about this, please leave a very long comment, some paragraphs. That would be
I don't know anything. I appeal to my audience to help me in my ignorance. Please leave a long comment where I don't know what I'm talking about. Wonderful.
Like surveyors or whatever, you know, they just kind of, this is the claim anyways. They assume that things are flat. That's because they only measure.
No. They measure it flat. There's no assumption when you're establishing a horizontal plane of reference. You're measuring. There's no assumptions when people go out and do surveying. What do you think all those expensive tools are for? Oh, well, we just use them to assume stuff. No.
Measure over like tens or hundreds of meters at a time. And so there's no point in accounting for the curvature on that scale. It would be in a...
What? Let me get it straight. You're telling me that if you're doing a small surveyed area that's, like, say, 10 meters, it's not going to have any bearing on the next 10 meters and the next 10 meters and the next 10 meters if you're designing a city, for instance? Yeah, it absolutely does. It would all accumulate, as you are trying to prove. But what you're actually now doing is mitigating for the fact that people build on the Earth flat. Yeah, they build on it flat and you damn well know it. But what, it's just so biggy that you wouldn't need to account for any curvature because we're only building at the small scale. So that would be proving that we're building on it flat then.
Appropriate to do so because it's not going to severely affect what at a time. And so there's no point in accounting for the curvature on that scale. It would be inappropriate to do so because it
would be inappropriate to do so even though your mathematics for Earth curve assert that it's at 1.2 times the square root of the observer's height in feet that we can see an Earth curve edge. So we can see it in the horizon. We can measure it and prove its Earth curve according to you at the horizon, even though it's debunked 4 years ago. But yet when we actually get down to the nitty-gritty of doing something that might be needing structural integrity, things that lives might depend on, then we treat it flat. I bet because it'd be inappropriate to treat it spherically. So it's measured and built on flat then? Yeah, that's what we've been saying in 2024 too. Yeah, so biggie it's flatty, right? Yeah, that doesn't really cut it when the actual process is just building on it flat, and even you admit it, and then try and mitigate for why they're not building on it spherically.
It's not going to severely affect what you're doing.
Would it not? Yeah, you don't think there's massive amounts of landscape that have got cities built on them that wouldn't have to incorporate an Earth curve causing major problems? What about the rail network? Yeah, that's built flat too. Across the whole country. Yeah?
Well, he is right, though. It would be inappropriate to assume the Earth is curving in Earth curve mathematics. It doesn't work if you assume the Earth curve is curving.
Yeah, it fundamentally destroys the premise in the geometry, because the premise in the geometry that's being used is surface level, which is level, having no part higher or lower than the other. Hey, Brian.
I don't see
it would be inappropriate.
We'll just get hello from Brian and then the end of John's bit and then whoever it was from Discord.
Hey, Nathan. Hey, everyone.
Hello. Yeah, John.
Oh, I was going to say, so yeah, it would be inappropriate to assume the Earth is curving, because even in Earth curve maths, it's not.
Yeah, all of their proofsies of a globe start with measurements of a flat Earth in all instances. Go ahead, whoever it was from Discord.
Step one, assume Earth is a globe. And I also don't see a link on that video.
Really? So, Planet Peterson, why? Right? I don't get it. We share your stuff. There's one of my own literally trimming your stuff for you, putting you out there. This is beneficial to you. Yeah, this clip. Yeah, that's been made by one of my subscribers that helped you in the YouTube algorithm, and you couldn't even give me a link. Wow.
Ideas is not faith either, because we have good reason to believe them.
None of these are substantial. None of them can you probably even define. Just to what, like I said, with regards to the evolution, Big Bang. These are his statements.
This whole video he's made is a response, right? And yet he couldn't even put a link to it. You've basically used a whole bunch of material and haven't even put a link. That's just so scummy.
Of faith, and then to say faith is useless. Yeah, especially with Big Bang. This comes directly from a priest, Lemaitre.
We're not even talking about flat Earth now. The Big Bang, it didn't come...
Yeah, we are. Lemaitre was under the same exact system that was being utilised by people like Ptolemy to make inferences of orbital motions. All of your Keplerian ideas were all derived from the same flat plane. So when you say we're not even talking about flat Earth anymore, when we talk about Lemaitre and the Big Bang, yeah, we are. They're all based in the same measurements. Doesn't matter who you are. Once you've reified it into a sphere and then described a Big Bang, or you've reified it into a sphere and then taken away a height dimension and substituted for time, claiming you've got a fourth dimension, they're all requiring a flat plane. Maybe you haven't been listening in 2024. All roads lead to a flat Earth. So yeah, absolutely Lemaitre is going to need a flat Earth.
Yeah, Lemaitre was a priest, but it didn't... To say it came from a priest is like
accurate. Yeah, it is, yeah. Maybe you just didn't know that.
To say that one day he got on Twitter and just said the Big Bang.
Like Lemaitre, the argument is that he's a priest. Yeah, that's right. But to just say he's a priest is just silly because he didn't go on Twitter. This man is insane.
It's true. No, Lemaitre was also an astrophysicist. Or, well, he was a physicist. He was an astronomer. I don't know specifically, but...
Oh my God! This is brilliant.
He discovered the Big Bang by doing...
He didn't discover Jack, right? He supposed this explanation for the Big Bang, which stands in direct violation of the first law of thermodynamics, I might add. He didn't discover Jack. Do you think he's got a time machine? Do you think he rewound the arrow of time to the beginning of it and then figured out what he was observing when he sat in the outside realms of something that didn't exist yet to watch it come into existence? You think he's proven this to you? What a clown. I don't think this guy even knows what the Big Bang is. Next clip.
Rotating in this direction, and nobody in the southern hemisphere could possibly look at the stars and see them rotating in the opposite direction.
Dumbo. They all rise in the east and set in the west.
Yep, that's true. They do, well...
So, not opposite directions then, like we were critiquing when you explicitly stated that they were moving in opposite directions. Explicitly. So you were fundamentally incorrect then. So when I described you accurately as a Dumbo, it's accurate then. You are dumb.
Well, except you could argue that...
Not argue. That's what they do. I love how when we put points of fact to people, they go, well, maybe you could argue that. No, this isn't a point of contention. You stupid idiot. That's why you're dumb. Yeah, when you're contesting things that are not in any way up for contention. Yeah, it's not a debatable point what the stars do.
You know, the thing about something moving in a circle is, on the top it's moving east to west, but on the bottom it's moving west to east.
Oh my God. So you think in the southern hemisphere, begging the question of antipodal positioning, the stars go in the opposite direction? No. Are you insane? Is this guy really going to reject and then describe the contrapositive of what has just been proven wrong with? Oh my God! Double down on it, Dumbo!
I think he just said that east and west are opposite directions in the south.
East and west,
like they switch directions.
Well, they're not
like they switch
relative.
directions
We're not
in the
talking
south.
about relative. East doesn't change.
No, I know.
This isn't relative.
I think that's what he said, though.
No, because he used a relative direction change when he said clockwise, anti-clockwise. After the fact. He just said they changed directions when we called him a Dumbo. Now he's describing anti-clockwise and clockwise. Relative direction. Yeah, like moving up to a roundabout with cars going around it and then crossing the road and looking back the other way. Do the cars change direction? No, they don't. No, they're still going the same direction. You've turned around. Right? But he's now asserting east and west because he doesn't understand the difference between actual or relative direction.
So,
yeah, he's
I don't
done with
think
that.
that's particular.
There you go, Neil.
Yeah, once you say that, you're done.
Yeah, this is what we go
can I just point out
It's good for a laugh.
something?
You may.
Can I point out something? Like, this is something we already know and something we've talked about before, but Adam brought it up again last night. Within their paradigm, their globe is rotating west to east. So it doesn't matter if you're north or south of their equator. The claim is that the stars appear to rotate east to west. That's how they describe star movement. That's how they describe the Coriolis effect within their paradigm. That's how they insert the Coriolis effect within their paradigm. Because when you stand in Ireland, like I am now, the star, and you look north, the stars are coming from your right, which is east. When you stand in Sydney, Australia, and you look north, the stars are coming from your right, which is east. There is no, well, they do kind of go the other way. No, there's no they kind of do anything, even within your own ridiculous paradigm. They go east to west. Any argument in any other way is just crazy nonsense.
It's just blissful ignorance and Dunning-Kruger on the part of somebody that should know his own rhetoric better than we know it. Obviously, being in this subject matter for 10 years, we're pretty familiar with the globe rhetoric and how it doesn't work. But your average numpty opposes doesn't. That's the problem.
Particularly, a great counter-argument.
Sorry, Brian. Go ahead.
No, I'm just saying, he's actually asserting that when he goes south of the equator, that his globe rotates east to west. That's what he's claiming. Well, in the north, it goes west to east. He doesn't realise that he's claiming there's two hemispheres of his globe that go in two opposite directions.
Yes, fundamentally idiotic. I agree.
Yeah,
very stupid.
But his counter arguments are so fucking stupid. So,
yeah, that's a very big tell. So you're getting angry because you've been demonstrated incorrect with your stupid nonsense that made you a Dumbo. So you start swearing. Yeah, very telling.
I don't know. I go back and forth. If I were to debate any of these idiots, would I actually debate the way they do?
Who cares? You can. You The door's open daily, right? Anybody can come in and challenge what we say here, and we will listen to you.
Hyperfixate on something.
Go ahead.
How can he call us idiots so fast when he just proved himself to be stupid?
It's projection, Brian.
Yeah, pure projection.
Projection.
Yes, pure projection.
Inconsequential like that, and be like just a gotcha of the way that they use the words. I don't think
There's no gotcha when we describe relative direction. It's just demonstrably wrong. Like in the pre-show when he's described some of the things we contradicted him with as just word salad. In other words, you don't have anything to come back at us with. Yeah, we know.
I would, but it would be interesting. No, because here's the rotating in this direction, and nobody in the southern hemisphere could possibly. What the reality is, if you're a little bit north of the equator and you look north, you see this, and if you go south of the equator and you look south, you see the same thing in the opposite direction. What the reality is.
So what he's done is he's summarised a basic understanding of this stuff that he got wrong initially now. Yeah, when you turn around, they go the other way. Wow, how profound. But you needed to summarise that for your audience now after getting it wrong. Yeah, you do, because you got it wrong.
If you're a little bit north of the equator.
You're welcome.
And you look north, you see this. And if you go south of the equator and you look south, you see the same thing in the opposite direction.
Oh, you see the same thing in the opposite direction? Oh my God. Your hyperspecificity is off the scale.
What the reality is, if you're...
Well, hold on.
Go on, John.
How are you going to invoke equator, since that is a minimum elevation angle to Polaris?
Good point.
Measurement.
Yeah, is begging the question of antipodal positioning, invoke the equator. What's the equator? Minimum elevation angle measurement to Polaris of a flat Earth. That concept's been measured flat and then reified into the sphere edge outside point that you call the equator and think is somehow related to a sphere when it's a flat Earth measurement. Okay, Brian.
Yeah, he was wrong there again. He says when you are north of the equator, look north, and then when you're at south of the equator, look south. You see the same thing, just in the opposite direction. No, you don't. He's still trying to add in an opposite direction. No, you can be looking north or south, either side of the equator, and the stars are moving in the same direction, east to west. You're not seeing it in a different direction, right? Your orientation is different. The stars are not. Thank you.
Thank you for the hyperspecificity that was so lacking from Planet Peterson.
A little bit north of the equator and you look north, you see this. And if you go south of the equator and you look south, you see the same thing in the opposite direction. Ironic. We know that the sun is a ball.
You don't know anything about the sun.
Of plasma made of almost entirely hydrogen with some helium.
Those would be gases, wouldn't they?
Wow.
Gases have a certain type of behaviour that's described with entropic law, second law of thermodynamics. These are laws of nature, things that occur always. And those gases, helium and hydrogen, did you say, would expand into whatever volume they've got. That's how gas behaves. What's that you say? Gravity? No, gas doesn't go down, go boom, boom, or in a fourth-dimensional pseudo-Riemannian space-time bending, because that's conceptual only and invented by a man called Einstein, and we don't have fourth dimensions. Time's not a dimension, it doesn't bend, and gravity's not a force. Gas, on the other hand, expands in all directions. So this violates natural law. Your description is a natural law violation. Go ahead, John.
It was me, I think. I know he has no idea of the origins of that claim or how they came to that claim. I know he doesn't.
I don't either.
Like the rest of the bowlers, he just parrots off a heap of rubbish without ever learning about it.
Do you? I don't know the origin story of claiming it's a gas in a vacuum.
I do that.
What's the origin? Oh, this will be interesting. I didn't know this. Go ahead.
It's actually a disaster in several directions. I use that word direction on purpose. There was a French spectroscopist who claimed to see yellow helium plasma on the sun, right? Back at the origin of celestial spectroscopy. So when celestial spectroscopy started becoming a thing, this French guy said that he saw yellow helium plasma on the sun. Helium and hydrogen plasma, none of them, and even if you mix them together in any way, shape, or form, are yellow. There is no yellow helium plasma. It doesn't exist, right? There is no helium, yellow hydrogen plasma. It doesn't exist. Helium plasma is magenta or purple, and hydrogen plasma can be deep red, purple, and another color. Sorry, but none of them, if you look at, go into art class and go to mixing the colors together, none of them will make yellow. But there's two other major problems, but I'll just go into one of them not to take up too much time. There's a second major problem, and that is that the sun is not yellow. It's white. It's not yellow. We observe it as yellow, but when you go up high, it's white, admittedly so by NASA. You go up at a high altitude balloon, you don't see a yellow sun, you don't see an orange sun or a red sun, you see a white sun, right? The sun is white. And you can mix helium and hydrogen plasma together all day long in every way you want, and you won't get white. Now, there's another part, again, I'm not going to go into it right now, right? That's an absolute destruction of it, but I don't want to get complicated. The point is that when they say this, it tells me straight away they don't have a clue. They just parrot. They've never looked into it. They never researched it. And, you know, it's a disaster. There is no proof whatsoever of what the composition of the sun is. None.
I did know if push had come to shove, I would have probably lent on spectroscopy. I just didn't have it to my fingertips.
I could go into the disaster that is celestial spectroscopy as well, but I don't need to do that.
No, you don't. I mean, as soon as you said
destroyed by reality.
Yeah, as soon as you said spectroscopy, I was like slapping my own head, going, "Well, of course it is." Yeah, but if you don't know off the top of your head, you don't know, and you did, so kudos. Yeah, spectroscopy, stellar in nature, heavily debunked because it's in no way controlled in terms of a study. But to make the comparison when you're looking through what is claimed to be a sky vacuum with vast distances, there's absolutely no way of controlling anything that they do anyway. But further to that, Brian, just out of interest, on a slight aside to that, do any of those gases, regardless of what colours they produce, go down, go boom, boom, go splash, splash towards the centre of a mass? Or do they all expand in all directions?
No, no gases on Earth ever adhere to what they claim to be a force of gravity. The letter G is not part of the ideal gas law. No gases adhere to any of this rubbish. Gases behave in their natural way, which is to expand and fill every available volume, especially lower pressure volumes. So if the sun was helium and hydrogen plasma, it couldn't be helium and hydrogen plasma and be in a vacuum. That would be absolutely impossible, as it would diffuse into that vacuum immediately.
And we know that because of, I don't think I've ever talked to a flat earther about this, but I need to talk to a flat earther about this. And
you're welcome.
And we know that because of spectroscopy data that we've taken. Now, ironic, okay, I can't do this anymore right now. So here's the deal. Okay.
I think that's it. Was there any more? No. Okay, there's one other little clip that we're going to take from 3 for today. This is from the Practical Navigator, I believe.
Geographic position. And
well, immediately we've got flat Earth. What's this? There's a flat plane because the GP is going to have 90 to it. Yeah, it is, isn't it? Yeah, this is proving a flat plane.
And it changes fast because the Earth is, of course, not flat and it rotates.
Sorry, well, if it wasn't flat, how'd you get 90 degrees to it? And why have you diagrammatically depicted it that way?
States and everything. But we do have a book that will tell us at any moment where was the sun at the time of observation. So if you know
its geographical position is 90 degrees below it, though, it have to be a flat plane to use this system. That's why you've depicted it that way. So why did you drop into this description of how a flat plane would work with 90 degrees at GP positions? That it isn't flat. This is seriously nonsensical.
You know an angle and you know a position of the sun. You have another angle.
Yeah, 90 degrees below it.
The height, you can calculate your distance from it, kind of thing.
It's elevation angle you can calculate the distance along the ground that must be flat for that distance to be accurate. But not the height. That's incorrect. The elevation angle gives you that. You're never going to get the height of the star. The GP, on the other hand, is directly below 90 degrees to your position. That means Earth must be flat to do this.
Two problems with that, of course. Number one is...
Yeah.
This is another time that the optical plane and the actual plane is problematic for them and their understanding, because you're taking an actual angle to an apparent position and getting an actual distance over a flat plane. That's why you can't trig out the height of the star. But he's not getting that. He's trying to convolute two different flat plane measurements and think that proves a sphere. It's delusional.
You know, the Earth is not flat, really. And number two, the laws of geometry on a not flat.
Why is he going to the extent of telling us how not flat it is when it can only work flat with 90 degrees to your position, as is described with this right angle triangle? Not quite sure why I drew these two rays coming off the little eye of Sauron, but there we go.
Flat Earth are a little different, so we need to take that into account. So on a not flat Earth or a round Earth or an oblate spheroid like we are, we have...
You don't get a ground position. Number one, in this depiction, there's a frickin' hill in the way. Well, let's call it a bridge. Right? You haven't got 90 degrees to the ground position of this luminary anymore. This doesn't work.
You have to, use some different techniques, but the same principles do apply. There's some spot where the Earth and the Sun align so that the Sun is directly overhead, the geographic position. It moves, we have to find it. We can measure a geographic position, and it changes.
Yeah, I mean, that is most assuredly a flat Earth proof, because it doesn't work spherically. What you can do is draw out a tangent plane, have a dingleberry dangling below it, and then you've got 90 degrees to your position where only one point of the sphere Earth ground is on the ground. You're not on the ground, or the tangent point that you've described for the luminary's ground position isn't on the ground, one or the other, because a tangent only meets the surface at one point if you infer it. Then you can transpose it down to hell and have it work on the equatorial plane, with the globe Earth just being the protractor.
No, with the dingleberry, hold on. With the dingleberry, though, the tangent that you're saying that's at your feet, it's clearly marked as surface level, and it's a horizontal plane.
Meaning that, meaning the surface level is a horizontal plane. Correct.
Yeah, the dingleberry is his delusion that he everybody cut and paste in there, but it doesn't exist.
No, he can't do any of those things, because to do all those things, he'd have to be doing a dip correction to a globe's geometric horizon, which he's not doing, ending every part of his claim. He can't get past the elevation angle to get the angle corrected by the dip correction to bring it to the center of his globe, because the dip correction does not correct to a globe's geometric horizon. The water at the horizon, no matter how far away it is, must be in a horizontal with the water underneath the boat for the dip correction to work. He doesn't realize that when he's looking at the horizon, it's not geometric. That's what's going on there.
Can someone post me a link to that video, because that one wasn't actually shareable in any way, shape, or form. So as much as I'm critical of Planet Peterson for not putting a link in our video, in this case, I don't want to put a link to Vlad. I want to put a link directly to him. Oh, here we go. Watch the full video. Ah, there we go. So I can share it. Okay, so please let this videographer know. I'll just bring up the chat so you can see what I'm doing, with a view to hopefully getting a response from him saying, no. 90 degrees to your position along the ground does work when we've got a tangent and only one point is on the ground, because reasons. So hopefully he'll offer those reasons, and when he does, he'll leave a link to our video where we've responded, and hopefully while I'm doing this little call to action, some of you from the live stream chat, there's almost 100 people watching, will actually go along and say, at Nathan Oakley 1980 sent me, hello Practical Navigator, or whatever it is you say, something friendly, something reasonably polite so you don't immediately get your comment removed. But let him know that we have pointed out that his nonsensical assertions that you can get ground positions 90 degrees to your position off a sphere, number one, won't work with dip correction because you haven't got a geometric sphere Earth horizon to reference. It has to be parallel with the plane that 90 degrees to your position is precluding a sphere from giving you. So this doesn't make much sense in that regard. It's merely a flat Earth proof in terms of its functionality as depicted on screen right now. So hopefully that's given you enough time to actually go away and let him know at Nathan Oakley 1980 sent me. And hopefully he would put a link, were he to respond, where Planet Peterson miserable sod did not bother. Why? Well, because obviously him being offered up algorithmic love where we receive none means we who receive none should only be used to promote him in the already being supported in the algorithmic love that he already receives. Because that's perfectly reasonable. Miserable sod. Right, hopefully a few people have come back since then. Divergent Droid's put a link in there as well. Thank you very much for doing that, Divergent Droid. Right, any last remarks on either Practical Navigator, Planet Peterson, or AstroKobi?
Nathan, there's one more clip.
One more clip?
With the spherical, yeah, with the Hell's Angles. You got to check it out. The last one, please.
Okay.
Thanks.
With the spherical law of cosines and sines and geometry, we're not doing regular old triangles from middle school or elementary school. We're doing...
Yeah, we are. That's precisely what we do in celestial navigation. Regular old right-angle triangles.
Spherical geometry, which sounds really cool.
Say again, John.
He just claimed that triangles were spheres. Just then. Rewind it.
Spherical law of cosines and sines and geometry. We're not doing regular old triangles from middle school or elementary school. We're doing spherical geometry, which sounds really cool. So technically, we're creating a spherical right triangle.
Wow. No, there is no such beast as a spherical right-angled triangle. That's an oxymoron. For it to be a right angle, it cannot have a curved line meeting it. What is this guy babbling about? Does he not respect his own credibility? There is no such beast as a right-angled spherical... This is a complete oxymoron. To have a right angle, it means it's at 90. It can't have a curve meeting it to be at 90. This is preposterous.
Can I add something in?
Yeah.
It's the things he doesn't realise and doesn't know. What he's claiming to be a curved triangle, the oxymoron spherical triangle, is the meeting of three, right, great circles, right, around his globe. So he's first of all begging the question of a radius that was never measured and can't be measured. But secondly, what he doesn't realise about his spherical triangles is that when you take an actual triangle, right, and you place it, a measured actual triangle, like they actually measure in reality, because in reality, no triangles in reality are measured by anyone with any tool to have more or less than 180 degrees. They can't be. So what they do is mathematically they try and place these real triangles onto the convex surface of a globe. And what that does is it increases the area within that triangle. This is why it would never work with celestial navigation. So once you increase that area, it means you've created area within the confines of those lines that you've now curved, because you've curved them and bowed them out the way because you're putting them onto a convex surface. Once you do that, you then have to deal with this extra area that you created. That's what's known as spherical excess. And what you must do then is take that away again. The only way to correctly take that away again is to uncurve the triangle. What Google Earth does, right, is you can draw a right-angle triangle in Google Earth, right? You can use LIGO to do it, right, and use the two arms as the opposite and the adjacent, and the line in between can be your hypotenuse, or you can use the different coordinates and do the same thing as I've done. And every time you do it, and you match up that polygon to any right-angle triangle calculator, and the hypotenuse of that polygon, particularly the hypotenuse on Google Earth, is always shortened. Why do they shorten that hypotenuse? Because it's impossible to keep the opposite and the adjacent the same length for a start and shorten the hypotenuse. Can't do that. But why does Google Earth do this? Because they're taking away the spherical. They're trying to it's mathematical criminality because they're trying to take away the spherical excess that's created by a real world triangle that's real world measured and placing it onto the convex surface of a globe. They're trying to take that back away again to keep the distances and all that within the area of that triangle correct. So it's complete rubbish. If he was using spherical triangles, he'd end up with celestial navigation, there'd be all this extra area within his calculation that he's not calculating for. It's complete rubbish. It can't
when you do this process.
It's mathematically in every way, backing up with the fact that you can't have chord lines on a triangle can't be done.
If you were to, kind of drop this line straight down to Earth and then through Earth down to the middle of the Earth, and then if you also...
That's what we...
One more time. I paused it because I knew someone would have something to say there. Go ahead, John.
Well, see, that's the thing. The spherical geometry he's trying to do, it's not done on the surface. It's done from the center, from a plane of reference. And then you use a radial value to intersect the angles drawn from that plane of reference. Yeah. So what are you on about? Angles on a sphere. It's angles in a sphere, dude.
Yeah, it starts with the premise that you can get a curved line, and then he's going to take that curved line that isn't a triangle, that couldn't be measured, into hell. So then when he does the functionality of measurements of angles and how they're used, they'll be done on the equatorial plane, a flat plane, and projected out to the stars, in this instance, beyond a protractor, because you're now standing inside hell.
Yeah, but it's not done that way. Quadrant-based geometry is dependent upon the center of the sphere, never from the surface.
Right.
It doesn't work that way.
How does it work? Well, I did in his first diagram with 90 degrees normal triangles along a flat baseline that you establish. You utilize the ground to establish it. And then there's nothing else that needs to be done. You've got a right angle triangle, there's nothing else to be done. What's that? Move into hell? No, we don't have to do that. And we don't have the capability of measurement of angles off curved surfaces.
So took a line, directly down from space to you, down to the middle of the Earth kind of thing. You could create a...
kind of thing. When have you done this? When is it done in celestial navigation? It isn't. He's also got a flat plane requirement for the down to the center. Go on, John, you take the glory.
Yeah, he invoked down, not in. There is no down on a sphere. What's this guy on about? He's read Wiki and he thinks he has an answer.
Different angle on the Earth. This angle right here.
Angle on the Earth. No, you don't have an angle on a curved Earth. You need a flat Earth for that.
Is known as zenith distance. Because your zenith is the spot right over your head. So when we do celestial navigation, although...
When we do celestial navigation, the zeniths are parallel. The zenith position, otherwise known as the GP, is parallel with your zenith. That's how you can describe it, as having a 90 degree. Even in your bastardization that makes no sense, you've still got the 90 depicted. But that's because you have parallel zeniths, which you don't have here.
To get that zenith, he's going to need...
Go on.
Sorry, to get that zenith, he's going to need a horizontal reference plane. Sorry, John.
Oh, correct. Absolutely correct. The zenith is perpendicular to the plane of reference. He doesn't have a plane of reference on the surface of a globe. Go ahead, Brian.
Sorry, I'm stepping on you. The whole point of the dip correction is to create parallel zeniths and a horizontal and a measured horizontal distance between them. That's the point of that's what you do. The dip correction is the correction he can't do on using his globe surface. That correction. The one, the dip correction where they reference the Earth at the horizon. The one they measure a port and then reference the Earth at the horizon and subtract that exact amount from the angle, the line that's going to the horizon. The other one they measure, where that means that the horizon, the water at the horizon must be in a horizontal with the water underneath the boat, regardless of distance. 25 miles away, it doesn't matter. Has to be horizontal. That one. That's the one that creates. That's the correction that creates parallel zeniths.
How can he correct
And
to
a
this?
horizontal distance
How can he
between
correct to a curve that's falling away from him when every single point is greater than the original when he measured it at port? It can't be done.
It can't be done, no, because he also, when he's rocking the sextant, he's also creating that zenith at the GP. How does he create that zenith at GP when he's rocking the sextant if that zenith is diverging off out away from him?
Can't be. It's perpendicular to the point that he established when he rocks the sextant. That's the whole point of the zenith, 90 degrees to his position. It's got to be perpendicular to the plane that he's measuring. That's what he's doing. Now he's saying, no, I've got a curvy line, that gives me a 90. I put that in the middle of hell.
Though we measure one thing, we're kind of interested in something else, but it's still an angle, it's still a...
No, it isn't an angle if you've got a curved line. Do you not fundamentally understand what the difference between something that meets at a vertex with two straight lines, that's an angle, versus a curved line meeting a straight line, because that's nothing.
Distance, it's still related. With the spherical line...
Go on.
Yeah, what he's actually claiming, without realizing it, is that he is taking an angle from a tangent, right? A tangent plane that's touching his globe at one point. This is what they're actually claiming. And due to 7 over 6R, or sometimes maybe greater than 7 over 6R, they bring up the horizon to match exactly where that tangent plane is. That's what they're claiming. So their horizon rises up to where this tangent plane is. The tangent is tangent to their globe. So at the end of that tangent plane, will be touching the end of that tangent plane will be touching the horizon. That's a horizontal, and they're claiming the tangent is a horizontal. Not that you can't have horizontal or vertical on a globe, but that's what they're going to claim.
Law of cosines and sines and geometry. We're not doing regular old triangles from middle school or elementary school. Geographic position, distance, etc. And think about it from space. If we're looking at the Earth, the round Earth, by the way.
If you're on the ground and you've got a sextant and you're looking at the horizon, just for the sake of doing this in a way that makes it seem like it works spherically, imagine that when you make that measurement very much related to the ground, because you've measured how high you are off it at the port, imagine you're in space, because then we can describe how this plane that I'll describe in the middle of Earth will work with angles that need 90.
You know, our ship is out there floating around somewhere. And remember that there was a celestial object in the sky, the sun, star, planet, moon, and if you...
All of which have been mapped and charted. All of which have been described with angular relationships off a flat plane.
If you dropped a line down, it's going to hit the Earth in some particular place. Or an observer out on the Earth is going to see us up in space directly overhead.
And this is... When is this used in as a practical navigator? That's the name of your smegging show. Practical navigation. So you think it's practical to imagine yourself out in space, looking back down on a globe Earth that's going to be described as a protractor in a moment, because we're going to be standing in the middle of it. Shout out to Unitox Femi, Sasha, for the super chat. He made angle underground of the Earth. Yeah. That's what he's going to do in a minute.
Do you remember the name of that spot on Earth? It was the geographic position.
Sorry, ground position.
So we can find that. That's great. And then we said we create...
Let's all just remember that geographic position is the position on the ground.
Kind of angles and distances to figure stuff out. The zenith.
You need parallel zeniths and 90 degrees to your position to work these distances out. None of this works on a sphere.
Distance, as it were. And if
as it were on a flat plane with 90 degrees to the zenith. Yeah, that's how it works, as it were, because that's how it works.
We're looking down on the Earth. You could represent...
We are never looking down on the Earth if we're holding a sextant and navigating with it. This isn't very practical. Why would you describe this as practical navigation when we're never looking back down on Earth?
The zenith distance this way.
And if no, that distance would have to have some sort of curve function to it to calculate it. But we don't.
If we were just using regular old geometry for a lighthouse that was really tall with a sextant measurement, that zenith distance is going to help us determine a celestial circle of position. We would know we're somewhere along that, arc. A huge arc, goes all the way around the world kind of thing.
What, you mean a circle of equal elevation? Because it's not an arc on a curve with differing heights. It's an area of equal elevation.
Because this zenith distance could stretch out. It could be here, it could be down here kind of thing. Just like using a radar on a lighthouse. We're creating...
A radar also needs a flat plane to reference.
One circle of position around
the circle of equal elevation.
GP, or the geographic position of that object.
Your ground position, position on the ground. Distance to it with a 90 degree from the zenith position. That's 90 degrees along a flat surface. That's not on an arc. Can't be, because it wouldn't be an area of equal elevation. You won't be able to calculate a radial value if it's curved.
Right? What if you were standing here and you observed the sun at a particular angle?
You will definitely be observing it with respect to a horizontal plane of reference if you're with respect to an angle of anything, because that's its angle off the horizon, right? Your line out to the horizon being the flat baseline for an angle. Angles are two straight lines meeting at a vertex point. I mean, is it just me, or earlier were you talking about how you've got curvy lines with 90s at the end of them? But now you're back to describing how angles work. That's a flat Earth requirement, my friend.
You got closer and closer to the sun, what would that angle change like? Would it get bigger?
Well, it would be changing on a flat Earth, wouldn't it? Because that's what angles are.
Bigger? Would it get smaller?
On a flat Earth?
Kind of thing? Well,
kind of on a flat Earth, because that's what angles are.
Closer and closer to the sun gets more and more overhead.
Yeah, like an angle measurement that requires Earth to be flat to take it. As you move along a curved surface, that's not giving you decreasing angles, because you're moving along a curve. You've not got two straight lines meeting at the point in the distance that you can use to establish that first baseline, the ground. The horizon won't give you that if it's a globe horizon.
So this St. Hilaire altitude intercept method is really just a way to say, all right, if you measure the altitude of the sun using a sextant...
You can't measure the altitude of the sun using a sextant. You can measure its elevation angle. That's not its height. It seems like this guy doesn't seem to recognize what an elevation angle is, because he keeps describing measuring the height of the sun.
And we do some math. Ultimately, we're going to find out, like, okay, are you actually where you thought you were? Or maybe are you closer or further away? As you got further and further away, the sun would get lower and lower in the sky, kind of thing.
What, an angle to the flat plane?
So these concepts, geographic position, zenith distance, not necessary in the cookie cutter process. The formulas kind
of... You brush past that pretty quick. In the cookie cutter process, none of this is done. Is it? What is done is parallel zeniths 90 degrees to your position. That would be a zenith here, 90 degrees to this zenith, also known as the ground position of the luminary being measured. That's how it's actually done. So this bullshit has just been quite boldly declared as not being done in the quote-unquote cookie cutter version. What, this complex nonsense isn't done? Your necessity to explain how a 90-degree curve angle's achieved isn't done. So what is done? We just measure a flat Earth in the cookie cutter version, because I'm demeaning it in this version.
Kind of thing, but it's helpful to get a big picture look.
How is it helpful to imagine yourself from space when you're trying to practically navigate? It isn't. You just do the cookie cutter version on a flat Earth.
What we're achieving with a...
You're not achieving anything. You don't have curve angles. You can't get curve angles. You're not achieving anything. You've got to measure it flat first. So this whole nonsense takes away from the initial measurement that requires a flat plane. All of the angles you described were prerequisite flat Earth requirements.
Site reduction. It's going to be one...
Something.
Go on, Brian.
Yeah, he's achieving to keep his belief that he's navigating around a globe alive.
That's correct, Brian. Good one.
But it stands in opposition to every measurement he describes.
Sure does.
Do we need any more of this, Mighty Mush?
Circle of position.
The circle of equal elevation. So you can gather the radial value to the GP based on minusing your angle that you measure off a flat plane from 90 and times it by 60 to give you the nautical mile distance. That's how it's done. But that means that the radial value you're deriving has to be flat. Otherwise the maths doesn't work.
The St. Hilaire method.
Go on.
What you can do is you can draw a two-dimensional circle and then place it on a three-dimensional object, creating what's known as a spherical cap, which is a three-dimensional shape, and then claim that it's still two-dimensional. after your measured radius has become a curved line, because that's what his radius becomes. It becomes a curved line.
Yeah, I did mention that earlier.
Placed on a globe. Sorry?
I was just going to say, I did mention that. I dropped that in earlier, which is to say that the radial value of the circle of equal elevation, that's a flat two-dimensional circle that's being measured so you can get the radial value from your point to the GP of the star. That's the whole purpose. That's a radial value. That's a straight line out to the edge of a circle from your point in this instance for your circle of equal elevation. Well, that can't be curved. It's a straight line. But that's what he's saying. The radius that he's trying to get, that thing that you're trying to minus from 90 times by 60 to give you that distance on that radius, that is straight. He's saying it's curved.
Yeah, he is. Yeah, because what he's actually doing is he's curving that radius, and the radius he's then going to claim is not that distance. So the radius he's then going to claim is going to come from the center pole of a globe out to wherever point his radius finished on the surface.
Right, I want to do a call to action.
Change the radius.
Oh, I'm going to do a call to action, right? Sorry to cut you off,
smaller.
Brian. I want to do a proper call to action. This has been an outstanding show. The amount of information we have crammed into this, it's probably an hour and a half coming up on now, or an hour and 20 minutes coming up on. This has been a really good show. At all ends of the flat Earth scale, from the rather amusing and rather idiotic Dumbo anti-flat earther, right up to the scale of seriously cutting-edge anti-flat earthism when you're talking about angles from hell. And everything in between, right? I mean, this has been an exceptionally good live show. Would you not agree?
Yes, sir.
I totally agree.
You say not
Thank
bad?
you for covering. Great job reviewing too, Nathan.
It's mostly down to you, Mighty Mush.
No, man. Like I just made the clips, bro. Like these people provided the material themselves, and you reviewed it. So thank you. But I just wanted to remind people that Planet Peterson is. These are the people who are teaching our children. He's a school teacher. I'm not sure it's high school or college, but he's a science teacher. And the practical navigator is an actual navigator, and he's actually teaching people. You know,
he's teaching people.
Yeah, but because hold on a second.
How to not get lost. Don't get lost at the sea. And this is the stupidity that we're dealing with. Angles from hell, spherical triangles, and laws of geometry of the not flat Earth. I mean, what?
And it would be inappropriate. And it would be inappropriate to measure it curvy.
Yeah, because we're only dealing with a few thousand feet, so it will be inappropriate. But yeah, man.
But they think they're navigating on a sphere.
Okay, did you hear me say call to action? Please share this live stream. So there's over 100 people watching, which is wonderful. I want this particular live stream to get a decent amount of viewers after the fact, because we are going to round out the live stream very shortly and ask people who are watching on after show to stay tuned. But I do want this very information-dense live stream to reach more people. I know I always do a call to action. I always say, please share the show, etc., etc. But in this case, I really mean it. I genuinely want this to get some good numbers. That is to say, if you're not of the ilk that typically goes, yeah, of course, I'll immediately smash the share button. I always do. If you're not of that ilk and typically go, no, it's got to be really information dense for me to want to put my neck on the line and put this out on my social media. This is that show. So if you're that person, I want you to smash that share button. It's like 2 clicks. And then it's done and you can forget about it until you get a load of aggro about people triggered that they're not on a surface that's spherical. Nevertheless, this should be that video. Because what are they going to get if they just search the subject anyway? They're going to get Planet Peterson. They're going to get Practical Navigator if they type in very specific wordy search criteria. But they might get something on this scale. And we've pulled it all apart in great detail today. And I want that to be something that gets in front of people. So I do call upon you, the audience, currently over 100 people, to say, please share this show as far as you possibly can. Get it out on social media, put it out on your TikTok, put it out on your, trimming it up on YouTube, do all those things, along with sharing it on Facebook and Twitter and X or whatever it's called now, because I think this is a worthy show to be shared. It always is, but this one more than normal.
Don't forget, stand on the rooftops and shout it out.
Yeah, open your windows. Flat Earth Debate's live right now. Shout out to FE Patriot. This guy needs to go to a reality re-education camp kind of thing. Hope he watches the show. The thing is, FE Patriot, thank you for the super chat, first of all. This guy goes through what he just demeaned as being the cookie cutter version of navigation. That's what he does on his channel in a general way. And we have utilized him as a source. And then people have, presumably because we've called them to action to let him know, told him, look, man, you need to start making a correction because you're giving flat earthers ammunition by telling them how Earth's measured flat and navigated flat. So this is the response to that. So this is there's more to this, although I wasn't necessarily going to hint at that in the live stream. But there is more to this. He does know how reality works. For him to know how to demean it in the way he did, which is call it cookie cutter, and disclaim that you don't do any of it. It's not normally done in the cookie cutter way. What, the measuring Earth flat way? But obviously, to maintain my sphere belief, I need to give you this whole load of old nonsense and tosh that it isn't done with, because it's overcomplicated and not used. But it affirms my sphere belief. That's what it's doing. It doesn't mean he's ignorant. He doesn't need an education in celestial navigation. He is the practical navigator. Please let him know.
That's what I was saying.
Just let me do the end of the call to the action. Bloody hell, Neil. I did not take breath. Please let him know at Nathan Oakley 1980 sent me. Go ahead, Neil.
Sorry. Anyway, but that's the whole thing. He thinks he's navigating on a globe. He's not an idiot. He's just uneducated in the fact that it's measured on a flat plane. Earth is flat.
Well, the irony of it is I used his video when you were over on GeoServer the last time when Brenda came in. I was one of this guy's videos where he's talking about time zones. I used his video to shut Brenda up because he confirmed that each time zone is 15 degrees per hour. Now, he, as a navigator, is also using the chronometer, right, if he's out to sea, right, which means that he'll have to address Australia as having only existing within two time zones between East and West Australia. And he'll have to accept that the same distance across the opposing latitude north of the equator, that across the same distance that in America there will be three time zones. So he doesn't even realize that, like, I can directly use him to prove, and what he does with the time zones, his own words with the time zones, and with the chronometer he'll have to use, that he's completely wrong.
Now I'm going to say, if you are watching this on either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley premiering streams, then stay tuned, as there will be an after show to follow. Unfortunately, though, if you are watching this live, this is where we bid you farewell. So another massive thank you to all of you who smashed the super chat, liked, commented, shared, subscribed, hit me up on Coffee Link and all that good stuff. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I will see you all in the next video. Please share the show far and wide. Hit that share button. Share. It's only 2 links.